Airbnb got crushed at the start of the pandemic, with no one traveling and people quarantined at home. 80% of its business disappeared overnight. But as home, work, and travel blurred together over the last 2 years, the company recovered, went public, and is thriving big time. Today, Airbnb released a major relaunch of its website to match how people travel and look for places where they can live and work remotely. And the company is all in on remote work. They recently announced their own employees can live and work from anywhere forever. In our 11th hour one-on-one, I sat down with CEO Brian Chesky and, of course, an Airbnb, and asked how the company envisioned what the future of work could look like, not just for their employees, but for millions of us. No surprise, their reevaluation of work started during the pandemic.
Well, what happened was people weren't traveling for business, they weren't crossing borders, and they weren't visiting tourist attractions. But they were locked in their house, sequestered, and some people were like, I need to get out of my house. And so they were getting in their cars, and they were traveling, say, within a tank of gas, and getting with friends, families, to Airbnbs where they were living and working. And something remarkable happened. Suddenly, we weren't just a travel company, because a fifth of our business was now longer than a month, not travel. Half our business was longer than a week. So suddenly this whole new, like, once-in-a-century travel shift occurred, and a wind kind of went from to our face to our back.
So you transformed your company because we were forced into work from home because of COVID.
Yes.
And now here we are at the next phase.
Yes.
And you're one of the first to say, we're not working from home for COVID anymore. We are working from home for good.
We're working from home. You can go to an office if you'd like. You can work in the United States. And if you're in New York City and you want to move to upstate New York, we're not going to lower your pay. We're not going to adjust it to the standard of living. And the reason why is I do think eventually within countries, wages for people working on laptops are going to start to converge. And people are going to be moving around a lot more. And so we wanted to just lead what I thought was an inevitable trend. My prediction is this is where the world's going to be 10 years from now. And all the CEOs hauling their employees back to the office, that's their prerogative. But here's what I would say. The companies with the best talent will usually win. And if you are limiting your talent to a commuting radius, you're not going to have the best people, because the best people will live everywhere.
Why? Why do you think so many other CEOs are saying, yes, our company has learned to function with all these people remote, but we're not optimizing productivity? Why do they see something different from what you see?
Well, the world has completely changed since 2019. And I don't think we can go back to 2019 any easier than to go back to 1950. A lot of people are looking at the big old companies to establish, well, what are they doing? I like to look at the young companies, because if you want to predict the future, you look at the next generation. And 20 years ago, tech companies popularized open floor plans. They popularized like on-site perks. And then what happened? Older companies eventually started looking like younger companies because they wanted to compete for that talent. Young companies are embracing remote work. They're embracing flexibility. This is where the world's going. If a company chooses not to embrace it, that's fine. But this is where the world's going to be 10 years from now.
Is it in some sort of bizarro way self-serving? Because if people can work remote, there's a chance they go and try and stay at Airbnbs for months and months at a time.
Yeah, of course it is. But to be clear, even if it wasn't self-serving, I still would have gone with the policy. Now, why would I have done it even if it didn't benefit Airbnb? Because like everyone else, I want my employees to be happy. I want them to stay at the company. And I want the best talent to work here. And the best talent isn't in New York. The best talent isn't in San Francisco. The best talent is everywhere. I often ask myself, if the office didn't exist today, would we invent it? And if we invented it, what would it look like? And would it look like it did before the pandemic? My instinct is the answer is probably no.
But innovation, connection, you really see that happening while you're sitting in a living room in New York and somebody else is in Chicago?
I think the proof is in the pudding. We haven't been in the same room for 2 years. And last year, we made 150 upgrades to our app. While being distributed and remote, we made the biggest change to our product in 10 years. And the biggest change to our customer service in 10 years. We did this all remote. And so that tells me something. It tells me that the world has changed, the way we work has changed, the way we've traveled has changed, and Airbnb's changed with it.
Let's talk Ukraine for just a moment. When the war broke out, you made a lot of serious moves and announcement in the region. Talk to us about what you've done and what's happening now.
Well, when this crisis broke out, I think our first instinct was what I think a lot of people probably thought: how can I help? And I think everyone probably, like a lot of people, want to help in the way they can. We just happen to have a lot of resources. So we announced that Airbnb, in partnership with our host in Airbnb.org, would house 100,000 Ukraine refugees. To date, we've housed over 20,000 refugees, and we're just getting started. The only other thing, Stephanie, I will just say is something even more remarkable happened. People in our own community, on their own volition, started booking Airbnbs in Ukraine with hosts they never intended to stay with, just to give them relief aid. And over the course of a few weeks, I believe more than $20 million were sent to Ukraine. We didn't take any commission. And this just speaks to something. In a world of darkness, in a world of destruction, I think kindness still exists in this world. And if you don't believe that, all you have to do is look at our own data.
It sure does. Love is always the answer. Brian Chesky, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brian Chesky basically saying 2019 is no different from 1950s and kind of saying, okay, boomer, to all those CEOs out there pushing to get their employees back to the office. Some of them may want to take note. Airbnb, since they made this announcement, the company that only employs 6,000 people has gotten 1 million hits on their jobs website. Who knows? This could be the way of the future. When we